Welcome, DJ. We find ourselves here on the analyst desk. We got a bunch of logos on the side of us here, and I want to take a moment with you just to break down tonight's matchup and what we're expecting to see. I know that you had a chance to talk to everybody who flashed that fight and Glaive Onyx, but what did you come out with in terms of any expectations you have for tonight?
My expectations for tonight's matchup is a bloodbath, is a grudge match. These are the two finalists from last season. Again, even though Glaive's players are different, these are the teams that made up the final largely. You know, who flashed that fight is the spiritual successor to VBO. Glaive Onyx is a spiritual successor to Glaive Amethyst. And there are some hard feelings, I think, left over from who flashed that fight about how it went down, how their throne was taken from them last season by Glaive in dominant 3-0 fashion in that final. I know that Stingus is going to want to bring it tonight. So I expect some very aggressive bottom lanes. I expect a lot of aggression in the early game. I expect these teams to try to send a message to each other that they are the top dogs coming into Excellency summer season.
Now, I agree with you, and I definitely think that Stingus is going to be playing aggressive. I actually will go so far as to say that I don't think Glaive Onyx are going to win bot lane a single time this series. But that brings me to the question of where else can Glaive Onyx play, because the way that I'm expecting who flashed that fight to play not just this series, but the entire season, is going to be largely around their AD carry, and you've got to find some other way to attack that team. Do you have an idea, or sort of a hope at least, that Glaive Onyx will go elsewhere, or do you want them to fight in that bot lane?
I would probably like to see them spend some resources in the bot lane. I think Tooper, the AD carry, did improve a lot over the season when he did join Akuma last year. He comes over, he is the point of contact for this team. He seems to sort of be the spiritual captain at the moment. So I would like to see them let him duke it out with Stingus in this bottom lane alongside their new supports here. So I do. I want to see them fight in this bottom lane. If I had to look somewhere else, the other interesting matchup to me, the big one, would be Giga and Dust to Dawn in the top lane. Dust to Dawn came on in the middle of the season for VBO and just absolutely slammed, particularly on Aatrox throughout the season, but really on any sort of bruiser top laner. He was sort of the surprise star of the season in the awards show at the end of Excellency spring season, and Giga was the Team 3 all league top laner. Dust to Dawn, the Team 2, both behind Glaive Amethyst, Clonk, Gronk, Zong. So that is where my eyes would be, if not the bottom lane, is on these top laners and how many resources are expended for them. Of course, the top lane meta has been kind of jumbled about a little bit in the last week or so. Not quite sure how Aatrox will stack up or how many bruisers will even be played up there, but these are two rocks that you can rely on to try to carry your team in team fights later on in the game.
We just want to see Aatrox, but as much as I agree with you, I'm going to sort of pile onto that and say that I think that if the focus does shift towards that top lane, if you are able to neutralize the bot lane, for Glaive Onyx, if you're able to sit there and pick an Ezreal, pick something that'll scale up, maybe a Senna Tahm Kench, you're going to be very happy and arguably even win that top lane, because just looking at the champion pools, I definitely think that Glaive Onyx have a little bit of an advantage in the mid lane, where you should be a little bit more comfortable roaming. I haven't seen who flashed that fight actually, in terms of the champion pool, be able to put out the same level of roam potential as much as they can lane dominance. And so if you can make this as much not about the lane as possible, make it about the macro, Glaive have a chance.
Yeah, I do think that's very much the case, and I think they are a team that can play around their macro. In particular, Giga, really, really good at absorbing pressure on top lane, even if he's not put on a bruiser, can just play tank matchups, will always be a rock for you, will be reliable in team fights. He carried a lot of team fights on Cho'Gath last season. I know that is a strong point for them. Also, I'm pretty excited about their support coming in here. Jado, extremely highly ranked support, plays a lot of Thresh. Talked to him a little bit today. Sounds like he is a very proud of his kind of assist rate on this team. I think he could be a big presence. You're talking about macro and roaming. I think a lot of that could come out of him in the bottom lane, depending on what they can get the Trooper on, if they think they can keep him safe. But I think he will be a big presence here against Dokdo as well in the bottom lane, who we've heard is a big shot caller for this Who Flashed That Fight team. Stingus sort of the brains behind the operation. So I think a lot of roaming, a lot of macro will come out of both of these bottom lanes, which again is sort of why I harp on that lane for today's
I'm gonna be harping
matchup.
on ban that Thresh as we do get into the pick and ban here. So we'll see if they do. Aatrox has already been taken away by Glaive. They heard, I swear they heard us with that. Or they just looked at his solo queue games because he's got hundreds on this champion, and it'd be very smart to take away right now. Just targeted bans. Importantly, no meta things quite taken away yet.
Oh,
yeah,
look,
there we go.
It's Thresh.
Oh.
Comfort picks being banned away here, Dia. No Aatrox, no Thresh going to be available. So poor Dust to Dawn. He had it banned away from him all finals. Won't get to play it again. Elise is taken away here by Glaive. That is an interesting one from the new jungler. That Morgana, that of course has been so present in the meta at the moment, just clears so incredibly quickly. That'll be taken away. I'm fascinated to see what the final bans here are. And so far, I'm a little surprised we don't see any AD carry bans. I know it's still kind of shaken out there, but Kog'Maw, Varus, Kindred, all available in those lanes. Scaling AD carries are sort of back in vogue, and I think there are a lot of options that you could look to take away.
I like Tristana because it can be a snowball-y pick in the bot lane and even in the mid lane here, but I think that Rumble, great ban away at the end, is going to take a lot of autonomy away from Glaive's top laner, who is really good on the Rumble, and Rumble very, very strong right now.
Yeah, certainly is. Giga, a Rumble fanatic for sure. He did pull it out a couple times last season, but yeah, you got to ban that champion away. And wow, that's an interesting one. Priority on Galio here in B1 for Glaive, Dia. That is not what we've been seeing here on the patch. And yeah, it's going to be an immediate lock-in here. It looks like of the Varus. I was just mentioning it. It is incredibly strong. Can be paired with pretty much any support you want. And they'll lock in the Volibear alongside it. So interested to see what Glaive builds around this Galio here. Of course, he's always going to set you up for some lovely macro across the map. Can just show up, give you an extra man situation, but not something we've been seeing a lot of, and I'm not sure if he's a support or a mid laner just yet.
I suspect him to be a mid laner. It's because of what we talked about earlier with wanting to neutralize the bot lane and play around other areas of the map. Galio can do that, and he can neutralize mid just as well, where Who Flashed That Fight will have no other choice but to try and play around exactly what Glaive want. You lock in Ezreal for that bot lane and it just gets better. I don't know if they're listening to the stream or what, but Glaive certainly have a read on how I'm expecting them to play this game. If they lock in Nocturne supposedly for the jungle as well, this could turn into a very snowbally game very quickly where man advantages will just erupt for Glaive.
Yeah, it's man advantages everywhere. It's they're really living up to the old Mythy adage here from early spring, where the more globals you have, if you have more globals, you win the game. That's simple. That's what he said. And these aren't quite globals. They are semi-globals, but like you said, they are just going to have man advantages across the board wherever they want to make plays. They have, of course, given up quite a few power picks, in my opinion, here to Who Flashed That Fight. I mean, Varus, Lulu, you can't ask for really a stronger bottom lane at this point. Lulu is so incredibly present in the meta. That could, of course, be a three-way flex at the moment. That could be their mid. It could be their top. She can just go anywhere and will just be such a boon to a composition with a Varus, and what I would expect to be a pretty high damage mid laner here in phase 2. But we'll have to see if they can stave off, like you said, this sort of ever-presence that I think Glaive's composition is looking to have, as they just want to kind of abandon Tuper in that bottom lane and go elsewhere.
Right now, I see this game is very quickly evolving into a race to 6 for the junglers, because I can only assume that Volibear is going to go into jungle at this point. You have somebody who can shut down towers, you have Glaive that definitely want to be playing back, and you have a bot lane that needs to dominate with something like Varus, Lulu. I want to see this Volibear thrown in there, get to 6, dive on repeat, because at this point, if Who Flashed That Fight want to be playing through the bot lane, it's their last remaining option. We'll see how they adapt in these last couple of phases. A tank in the top lane will never go wrong for you, and they've got themselves a pretty strong front-to-back composition to top it all off.
Yeah, very much so. The way this is going, I sort of expect this Varus We'll wait to see what the mid lane pick is, but I feel like you can't get away with Poke Varus in this composition at the moment.
I think that's why you pick Lulu.
So I attack speed Varus in this comp unless we see something, and some sort of AD mid coming out. But it is a Volibear likely to be in the jungle, so I don't quite expect that. So we'll see what they do prioritize for their mid lane here. Is Renekton going to be the lock-in? So we're just going back to 11-6 here for Glaive. They are really pulling out the 11-6 meta, diving semi-globals here, Nocturne Renekton in the top lane. And look out there if you are Dusk to Dawn on this Scion, because they are looking to kill you.
Oh, okay. I was wondering about this and whether they would actually end up flexing that Galio bot lane, and what I thought was a very smart play still ends up being one, as you're able to use this blind pick mid to your advantage. Now you've got options here, but it will be the Zoe into what now for who flashed that fight? Because I can only expect a counter.
Yeah, that is the big question here. We'll see what they've saved.
R5 Orianna.
It's an Orianna.
A classic R5 Orianna. Why even R5? DJ, justify it for me, please. Please, God.
So the justification is it is fairly good into Zoe as the matchup does go on, of course. Very hard for her to get away from you. She can't really portal jump into you at all after level 6. You just throw the ball where her portal jump was, you ulti her when she comes out, and unless she has flash, she's probably going to die if anyone else is around. So it is just a solid matchup. Of course, Orianna is incredible in team fights, and they do have a decent ball delivery system here with the Volibear, with the Scion. They have good pick potential with the Varus as well. So I think that is the answer. It's just a strong team fighting composition, but I do agree with you, Dia, that it's interesting that it just goes all the way to R5 when you can just blind that thing at any point in this draft. At the end of the day, though, you kind of look at the order of the picks here for who flashed that fight, and it's just kind of a power pick draft. I don't think they're really going for subtlety. They didn't really go for flex picks at all here. They've just drafted a lot of champions that they have comfort, they have synergy, they have huge team fighting potential, and are just really strong at the moment. So I think what they've kind of lost in subtlety and counter picks in this draft, they've made up for with power picks. And I do think the later this game goes, the more it will be in their hands, unless they get a little bit lackadaisical with sort of their side lane setup. Because if you do screw up a side lane setup in this match, you're going to die real fast.
Yeah, and the mid game is where I expect Glaive to really come online, and I say that mostly because of the level 6s with the global presence that it does bring for this team, for this composition. I think Glaive are actually going to have a really good time contesting things like second and third Drakes, but the first two at the very least should belong to the Varus Lulu lane. It's where you're strongest, you've got a winning mid lane, you have a Volibear who's more than comfortable here, and dragons can become a very real win condition for who flashed that fight, so Glaive need to be aware of that, start playing towards this top side, and it sort of feeds into what we were talking about earlier. Exactly where Glaive want to be playing.
Yeah, I definitely think that's exactly where they do want to go. So we got our bugging out just a little bit here, so we'll hopefully get that fixed. But yeah, it's going to be topside focus here. When you pick Renekton, particularly nowadays, not on 11.6 anymore, kind of looking at a different game state, you really do want to get this champion into a state where he can spread that lead around. It was kind of a tried and true strategy. Dive a couple times, get this champion kills, and then have Giga, one of your sort of power players, a holdover in those top 3 top laners from last season, hitting that third team. Let him spread that lead. Let him sort of be the power point for your team composition as you move into those mid-game fights. A strong Renekton can just absolutely dominate the map, and with all of the support he will have, I do think you can go up there, kill the Scion multiple times. Yeah, typically Scion's hard to dive, but not really with Renekton. The empowered W will just shred a shield, so should be just fine trying to kill Dusk to Dawn multiple times, and we'll have to see if Dusk can absorb the pressure here, because I do think he'll have the target on his back.
Will, and his teleport is going to be gone almost all the time, and teleports are a cooldown that I think are going to be way more valuable than anything in almost any other game this time around. And it's because of the dive potential that we see for Who Flashed That Fight in the bot lane. If you do have a Renekton or a Scion with mismatched teleports, that's a fight that can very easily swing, that can turn into more objectives, that can deny win conditions from Who Flashed That Fight. I'm looking for Volibear to hit 6 as fast as possible, but after that, Who Flashed, they need to be the ones that are setting up really great vision, keeping their backline safe so that they can't get teleported on when they try and make a play. Because they're the ones that have sort of this early game onus in that bot lane.
Yeah, I would say they will definitely have the pressure in early game. I think, honestly, they scale better, too. I mean, Varus, particularly if he's attack speed, of course, is just going to be great. You know, in the later stages, Ezreal can dish out poke damage, but I 100% agree with you that setup is going to be critical for Who Flashed That Fight. As mentioned, you know, anytime you misstep against a composition like this, they punish you instantly. Nocturne presses are, Galio presses are, and someone dies. Like that's just how it will go if they don't get their setups appropriate, if they kind of lose focus and one or two members strays away from the rest of the comp. If they do get to objectives first, though, if they do have good setup, if they are handling sort of their macro well, I think it's really hard for Glaive to win fights against them unless Giga's kind of mega fed from the early game here. They have such a good front-to-back composition. The Varus is going to be hard to get on top of with the Lulu. And with an Orianna Varus, I just don't see a way for Glaive to win 5v5s as the game does go on. So I think it will very much be a game of, can you set up or can you find the opportunities to pick apart that setup on either side?
Watch that macro, watch those globals from Glaive, but it's very, very clear with the power pick draft that Who Flashed That Fight got for themselves that they want to be playing for the lane, they want to be playing this full court press. We'll see if it works out because they've certainly got a grudge match to behold. I'm going to send us to a very short break before we hit the rift, and you and Necrox can take it from there. We'll see you on the other side.
Risk the fall, we have felt it all come crashing down from far above. Stars are rising, countless worlds colliding. Only one will take it all. Can we bring to fall the giants? Can we make the final call? We are the ones to ignite the darkened skies. The champions of a world that we defy. A solar ray of the few who rise up high. And we all fight at the last. Hearing voices from afar. Join the madness when the curtain falls. Risk it all, hold nothing back. Seize the day, we must attack. Stars are rising, countless worlds colliding. Only one will take it all. Can we bring to fall the giants? Can we make the final call? We are the ones to ignite the darkened skies. The champions of a world that we defy. A solar ray of the few who rise up high. And we
Hello everyone and welcome to The Rift. I am Necrox joining you once again, but joining me is the man, the myth, the legend, DJ himself. It is time to begin in week 1 for the top tier here in Excellency. It's Heavy League time in the summertime. I couldn't be any more excited than to begin the split, casting our quote-unquote defending championship roster, and then the number 2 team, the champions before Glaive Esports Onyx, or before that Glaive Amethyst took home the trophy.
Yeah, we have an absolutely fascinating matchup here between, the reigning champion org with sort of this revamped roster and who flashed that fight. Again, we haven't quite put out our preseason rankings just yet here, Necrox, but I'm pretty sure we've ranked these teams 1-2 again between most of the casters and staff here behind the scenes. So we have very, very high hopes for these teams. It is week number 1, so could still be some issues with communication with macro, but that should just make this game all the bloodier, and that is what I'm looking for in this matchup. We heard it from the members of Who Flashed That Fight. They want a little revenge from the last season's playoffs. Even if these aren't the same players, they don't feel great about losing so badly to Glaive. They want to fight back. They want to strike first, and we'll have to see if they can do it. But again, Glaive not going to be slouches here with their new members. McShootums coming up from sort of mid-league elo. He has climbed so fast this season to Diamond. Giga is a rock. The Tooper is a rock. And they are going to be the ones I'm keeping my eyes on to try to take this game, to try to continue to prove that Glaive is on top.
Yeah, and after a finals that was so highly anticipated, it maybe disappointed a lot of fans from VBO that were looking to reclaim the title, looking to get that back-to-back trophy win. But now it's a new split. It's time for the first game of the season. As we got our draft locked in, you guys so eloquently pointed out what these teams needed to do. But to reorient, obviously, when you have a Nocturne and a Jungle and a Champion and a Summoner like McShootums, you're racing to that 6 mark. A lot of range, though, for Glaive Onyx to work with the Ezreal and the Zoe, and then the Galio long range engage to follow up.
Yeah, ton of range available here. Nice sleep there from Puffles in mid lane. It's a pretty solid matchup for Zoe early. One thing I do want to mention here, actually, is that Stingus did go Comet on Varus. I'm a little surprised we don't see attack speed. Yes, Orianna can put out a ton of auto attack damage, consistent damage the later the game goes. Those Qs sort of get on a cooldown that becomes very negligible, and her autos do stack damage. So they do have that in their back pocket, but does kind of leave one less option for Lulu to truly buff later in the game, as Stingus does head for a more poke-oriented approach to this lane. granted against an AD carry there in Ezreal that will be a little harder to interact with if you are attack speed. So I think that's probably the reasoning, but it will be interesting to see how that interaction goes with Dokdo's Lulu here as the game progresses.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, it's something that I would love to see from Singus is the on-hit, or the Kraken, the crit Varus, if you will. I can understand for the lane matchup, though, of course, you do want the range. You want to be able to poke out the Galio especially to make sure Jado really can't force the issue on any sort of engages with big shoot'ems at level 6. But regardless, Stingus will be running a common, opting for that lethality. We'll see how the damage profile really plays out. If Baka does choose to go more the tank style, we'll see how much damage they can really find onto the critical carries. As we run into a quick pause, it's perfectly expected, DJ. It's week 1, which means we get even more time to set the stakes for what this split can be for both these teams. Obviously, super high expectations, and a quick reminder, it's 1 for both of us for who flashed that fight. We both ranked, formerly VBO, ranked number 1. Glaive, Onyx, both of us ranked at number 2. Dia, however, has them at rank 5.
Wait, he has Glaive at rank 5?
Yes, the returning champions, quote unquote, rank 5.
Interesting. Yeah, I will say this: we have a lot of new teams, and I think a lot of the teams that have come in look very, very strong to me. I honestly think we are in for an incredibly competitive season here in Heavy League. But again, going off what we know from last season, when I see Giga come onto this team, that just immediately, in my mind, makes this kind of a top tier team for me, because it just makes one lane feel guaranteed to me in most matchups. Like, this guy is always going to be there. He's always going to know how to play his matchups, be relevant in team fights. He was huge for Akuma last season. And again, I think the Trooper was very much improved. He's particularly good at Vayne, which I think is something growing in the meta. We see a lot more late game carries without Hecarim and Kai'Sa just permanently in the meta, just assassinating you in the backline. So I do think there's a lot of room for the team to work. I like their additions as well, and they feel very confident in the conversations we've had for them that they can uphold the legacy of Glaive Amethyst before them, that they are going for this title, and they believe they can win it. They can stand up. And I tend to believe them because of who the players are that are saying this. So as we do see the reason for that pause there, as Baka maybe struggling with his internet. And speaking of Baka, as we take a look at his camps, he's the new jungler here for who flashed that fight, taking the place of a very notable figure in Jimmy, who was sort of at the heart of the VBO composition. The VBO game plan was so often built around Jimmy. He is no longer here to carry games. They're big shoes to fill for Baka, whether that isn't a supportive role or a carry role. He is going to have to come up huge for who flashed that fight to sort of justify the ranking that we're all giving them.
Yeah, and I swear the only thing more scary than some of Giga's Rumble ultis, which split up area and sliced down some health bars, was VBO Jimmy's Hecarim, right? He just finds ways in where no other jungler in Heavy League could, and it's really sad not to see him on who flashed that fight this split. But regardless, I'm looking forward probably more to Baka than I would be a returning split from Jimmy, just because I want to see what Baka brings to the table. For now, he sits a comfortable 5 CS down. That is basically to be expected at this point. Tuper has built himself a slight CS advantage in the bot lane, though the little start there with a longsword, the cheekiness from Singus will get him a little bit out ahead in terms of building towards that first item. Jado and Dokdo are two of the supports that are, or maybe more slept on, if you will, coming into the matchup. I think so far it's not really been too interactive, but from the support role, I really want to see these two begin to duke it out, especially how they can control the Rift with their vision and their roams, something that really saw great measures of success last split.
Yeah, I'm going to have my eyes on them, but more importantly, I'm going to have my eyes on top lane. As we talked about this, Dusk is in some trouble. Can he stay alive? He flashed away. He will survive. That's big time, Necrox.
Dusk to Dawn barely makes it out with a flash. The fear just wasn't enough there for McShittum, so first gank won't find the mark here from Glaive Esports Onyx. Hopefully, it's not a herring for what's to come for the rest of their game, the rest of their time here in Heavy League, but McShittum's will come up empty-handed. Now it's Jado. Speaking of the support, he'll make the play, dashing in really only just for a taunt, and Dokdo there for the shield, so well done. But Baka, wonderful jungling here. It's every jungler's dream. You see them top side while the dragon is up. No problem securing first Drake to who flashed that fight.
Yep, great stuff from who flashed that fight. You can see Stingus actually expends all of his mana to push the lane as well. As soon as McShootums shows top lane, they take that Drake for free with a little bit of pressure, and it does cost Dusk his flash, but nothing more. So they'll be feeling great about that. Dusk is, yeah, he's doing okay here. Every time that shield's up, he feels a little bit better about things. He is down pretty significantly on CS, but that's kind of the name of the game for Sion. He's always going to be tanky. He's always going to be a huge team fight presence, really, unless you really, really destroy him in the early game. So things looking very, very good here for the likes of who flashed that fight. But do keep your eyes on McShootums. He has ticked level 6, and yes, he ganked. It wasn't a level 6 gank. The first paranoia here will be a big tell for how the rest of this game might go.
Yeah, McShootums coming up from mid-league as well, so some of you may be familiar with the name or recall some of the incredible plays that mid-league got the grace to watch last time around. It's really a name that I'm glad to see in heavy this time, and McShootums really just one of the best of his kind in mid, looking to make a debut here. Is slightly behind because of what happened, but look at this, Jado and McShootums paired up, the jungle support duo, making their way onto the red buff. Believe they got it as well. Yep, McShootums is wearing that one with pride. What coordination. Sure, it's not a huge prize, DJ, but coordination like that in week 1 isn't something we're often treated to.
Yeah, really, really nice stuff here. I was kind of going to mention Jado and Dokdo. They are new players here, but I think these two are going to be huge for these two teams. My eyes will be on them throughout the season as big-time shot callers, big-time centers of macro play for their squad. And you can see it coming out here as this sort of earlier game composition does go into the jungle, but now Baka trying to punish.
It's a shockwave that finds 2. This could be first blood, first kill of the entirety heavy league split. True shot barrage tags 1 from Tooper, but the play is going to be made in top side instead. McShootums is coming with a paranoia. Dust to Dawn's in trouble, and it's first blood to who else but your reigning champions, Glaive Esports. Onyx take first blood of the entirety of heavy summer.
Yes, they do. We were just talking about the paranoia. There was a big skirmish in the bottom river. It doesn't actually result in any kills as Puffles does sneak out of there. Here's Baka, though, back in the bottom lane.
Desperate to make a return play. Nice flash ulti from Stingus to set this one up and knock it down. Stingus gonna grab one, taking this scoreboard right back even.
Yeah, and 2 really nice setups here on both of these kills, and a great response from who flashed that fight. First, it is Giga getting lane priority in topside. He actually freezes the wave outside of his turret. That's why Dusk is so far in advance in that lane. That's why the paranoia comes in, and without flash, with McShootums taking up a good position to deny the unstoppable onslaught away, they take him down. But the same can be said in bottom side, as Stingus had the wave in a very solid position. Of course, Tavares always has that CC available. He flashes in, roots up Jado, and that guarantees the return kill. So who flashed that fight? Not going to take first blood. Sitting down, they fight right back and find themselves in a pretty even game here, despite the extra gold on that first kill.
Yeah, we'll be just back to neutral between the top 2 sluggers in heavy so far, and this is what you would expect. A high-level competition with basically even gameplay. It's been Giga trying to press this advantage all night long so far. Has built himself up a nice CS lead. Dustin really just trying to minimize as best as possible. The Bramble Vest will help him do that. Cut down, on some of the Conqueror healing that can come through from a champion like Giga. Even building Bork, first item. Meanwhile, McShootums has picked up the Rift Herald here for Glaive Esports. Onyx looking to get that one down before plates fall, as just about 3.5 minutes to do so, and they're looking for Dust to Dawn once again. They won't leave him alone. Flash over the wall, but it's followed immediately by Giga with a nice stun, but they just don't have enough damage, and with a double physical profile from top jungle, Dust just stacks armor and waves them goodbye.
Yeah, it does a little more than wave him goodbye there. A little bit of BM coming, the dancing Scion as he flashes away. And we talked about it on the desk there that there was going to be a huge focus on trying to get Giga ahead in this top lane. Meanwhile, bottom lane, ooh, Stingus!
Stingus, not exactly where you want to be shooting that one. Just barely missing out on the ulti. Meanwhile, though, Justin had to base topside because of the damage that came through. He waved him goodbye, but now has to wave goodbye to his own turret, as it's the trade of objectives here. Love to see it once again. Again, really good stuff here from Baka to make the play, knowing his top laner is never going to be the win condition, but McShootums may just be one loss, not barely. The fears in time. Dragon traded away for tier 1 top. How does the math crack down, though, is the question.
I mean, the math looks really good for Glaive right now. You see they're holding about a 2k gold lead as the full turret platings do go down. They're split between the jungler and the top laner, so not full gold onto Giga, which I think is where you probably would have wanted it. Okay, Baka, yeah, no, just gonna make a nice little pass through mid lane here, as I think he knows that McShootums is around. He might have to ulti. He doesn't do it.
Wow, second attempt in the red buff nearly turns into Baka dropping. Trying to just get back and get a hand on his own jungle. McShootums has been all over Baka's back tonight so far, clearing away now Raptors. And look, Jado's here once again. I wanted to see Roams, and he answers the call for justice. Jado here to support his jungler once again in this mission to make Baka's life a living hell, and McShootums will secure Baka's red buff for the second time in 3 spawns.
Yeah, they are just brutalizing poor Baka, but this is kind of what you expected, and this is the power of drafting Tupper's Ezreal. I mean, look at, he's dead even on CS, doing just fine here, and you can just ditch him completely unless Varus lands a perfect combo of the Chains of Corruption into a full, EWQ, okay,
Whoa.
Potentially like this.
Yeah,
potentially like this.
The way to do it. Tupper has to heal. I think if Singis E'd first, which then has the Grievous Wounds effect, cuts healing by some portion, I'm not sure the exact numbers, gets the heal to Tupper, which is then less effective, then hits him with the Enchanted Q. It works. We're not going to be too naughty on it for now, though, as now Stingus is going to fall. McShootums gets it with Paranoia. Jado over the top as well. It's a double kill for McShootums. Baka trades one back, taking a bite out of Tupper, but he's on the run. It's real scary, man. I don't blame you. Jado has got one for himself.
Ooh, nice stuff.
There's one from Donut Maker, gonna force the flash at a Jado. Now following it with his own. Donut Maker in a 1v2 has got one. The shockwave hits the minions just for wave clear. We won't call it a miss. Won't count it against you.
Yeah, calling it the wave clear. That was some nice mechanical play there initially by Donut Maker. Does whiff on the ulti, unfortunately, but it's good cleanup after a nice play from McShootums, who, as you mentioned, has kind of just been everywhere with the help of his teammates. Again, they have the extra priority with the draft they've committed to, with the Ezreal in the bottom lane. Yes, Tupper almost dies, but he does not fall, keeps himself alive until the full play comes through. Baka does end up taking him down, but it ends up being an overall positive play still for Glaive. They've got themselves still a 2.5k gold lead here and should be feeling pretty good about how this game has gone, kind of going to script. Again, we talked about the Nocturne and the Renekton duo here getting Giga ahead, giving him priority, trying to kill Dusk to Dawn and really put pressure on that top lane. They've done that. They've taken the turret, they've killed him once. They've gotten Giga a pretty sizable gold lead here, 20 CS and a ton of those plates. The one issue here, again, is that sort of wall that does face them. At some point, this comp just outscales from who flashed that fight, in my opinion, and 5v5s are going to be really hard for them if it's set up properly. In that last fight, Stingus, Dokta wasn't near enough to him to pop the ulti, to pop the shield. That is why he died so quickly. If they're set up properly, it's going to be hard for them to win fights. And who flashed that fight already has 2 Drakes. So despite their gold lead, I honestly don't think they're feeling too bad about their situation. It is still very much in their hands if they play out fights correctly to take this game. This lead is not quite big enough in my opinion, and I think Glaive are going to have to do a little more to really blow it out of proportion.
Yeah, and I really like Dustodon on the Scion in this game in particular. Sure, he's been taking a beating. Sure, McShootums has paid him a visit a couple times, but the severe lack of consistent magic damage is going to serve him wonders. Puffles is going to try his hardest to throw as many paddle stars on the backline, which means Dust does not need to worry about it at all, but it's Baka that needs to be worried as everything in the kitchen sink came his way. Ulting over the wall back to safety after a quick nap will serve him a little bit of life to work with as Drake spawns in 10 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're pretty happy with that trade of ultis. Yes, Baka will be a little less tanky. He does have a chem tank, though, and there's no paranoia, which is such a good ultimate ability. Oh, now the root's gonna land!
Stingus sets it up for Dustodon to slam down, but Puffles will keep himself alive just for now. The Lulu ulti's gonna go down. The taunt is absolutely massive, but Shadow might have overextended himself a little bit too far. Stingus lands one more arrow. It's not enough for the kill. Donut Maker to 1v1. McShootums wins it out against the enemy mid laner. McShootums from mid league has arrived in heavy welcome. My friend, we're here with open arms. Who flashed that fight? The #1 ranked team by us both have lost their Orianna, and now we're trying to secure Soul Point. Have to TP back in from Dustodon. The fight is not over yet. Waves crashing bot, waves crashing mid. Who flashed that fight? VBO. Looking at the defending champions, trying to get this Drake in control.
How did Zoe live there? How did Puffles stay alive? That was incredible. He looked dead to rights there, getting rooted up by the chains of corruption and then the unstoppable onslaught, but somehow he survives and they get a 1-for-0. Honestly, Necrox, that looked so good for who flashed that fight initially. I am really impressed that Glaive were able to come out on top, but they still can't take the Drake. Their health bars are too low. They don't have the ultis, and so the prize is still on the table here for VBO despite losing the fight. And you can see a lot of their ultis already back off cooldown here as they set up for this Drake. Vision a little bit split, it's a little bit dark, and that paranoia is available. We'll have to see who can execute better, but all 5 members are here.
Keep your eyes on the ball. It's like a magic trick. That shockwave could obliterate the backline of Glaive Esports Onyx. There's a little bit of movement speed from Puffles with, I believe, a picked up Trellis or something of the like, but no one is willing to fight just quite yet. Last time it was started by Stingus, then followed up by Dustodon. Here we go in the bot lane. They're going to try to charge forward. Double stun. Giga low, popping the Dominus, retreating back under the turret, but who cares about a turret when you've got an angry volley bear? They lose their mid laner, though. What a play from Glaive Esports Onyx off camera to trade this one out 1-for-1. Donut Maker lost his life again when it matters the most. 4v4 time, DJ. Over the wall still is Puffles. Dustodon doesn't care about his damage. He's got a shield. He's a very tanky Scion. Are they willing to flip it? Can McShootums take a smite away off Baka?
There are no ultis here on the side of Glaive. There's the ulti from Stingus. They still have Lulu ult. They're going to win this fight.
Shadow has to get away. 1 HP somehow still alive. Doko on the back end, about 1 HP as well. Stingus is low, going to be used wild growth. It's stolen away by McShootums. He's going to get the Drake. He's going to die Soul Point, lose his life for it, but what does the rest of the fight break out to be? Tupers on the run. The Scion passive will not get anything. And McShootums, the mid-league jungler, will steal it away from Baka and VBO.
Honestly, McShootums has been huge in this game, Necrox, getting the steal away from Baka. He might be a level or 2 up, which could have helped with the smite steal, but it was always going to be really risky there for Glaive because, again, they used everything to get Orianna. The paranoia was down. Giga's ult was down from dying. Tuper had used his ulti as well. There was nothing for them, and both of the bottom lane members here had their ultis. The Chain of Corruption and the Wild Growth are so powerful. It looked for, again, all the world that this was a who flashed that fight win in the team fight, but the poke coming in from Puffles, from Tuper, softens him up. McShootums kind of sneaks in there with the Stride Breaker. He takes the Drake away. Yes, he has a level lead, but it's a good smite nonetheless, and he does slow down the stacking of who flashed that fight. We do still see a very similar gold lead, though, after what seemed like 3 minutes of skirmishing. Still just about 3K gold here for the likes of Glaive Esports Onyx.
And And this is the worry at the beginning for me, DJ, at least. Who flashed that fight? They have a double carry composition with a tank Volibear. It's all about Stingus and Donut Maker. Dropping at the beginning of that fight cuts your damage quite literally in half. And Donut Maker not able to reinforce the team that time around, which allows Tupert and Puffles to free fire on anyone they require. Glaive Esports Onyx, excuse me, come up with a big win, securing Dragon number 1 for themselves. 3 minutes until we're going to see one more of those. But for now, the siege is on in the mid lane, looking to drop that mid-tier 1.
Yeah, they certainly are. Red buff here to Tupert. A lot of pressure being put here. Again, you have that Varus. McShootham's kind of hanging out on the angle. He's looking for that paranoia, but he is spotted out on that far side ward. You got to get deep warding when you're playing up against a Nocturne to know when he's coming. You can't play shallow wards, and trying to do as best they can. Again, setup so important for who flashed that fight. You've seen Donut Maker get caught out twice now as his team has rotated. You can't be separated from your squad or you will just die to this engage from the paranoia, from the heroic entrance. They got to stick together. They're looking to do that here. So again, just a little bit of trading in mid lane. Both these turrets still standing at the 22 and a half minute mark here. And honestly, Necrox, I still got to say it, this game is balanced so tightly here. Yes, it's 3k gold, but I do still think the scaling advantage goes over to who flashed that fight. And either team could execute here. If they can continue to find picks, okay, hold on. I think they're fine.
Looking for one in the mid lane. They just can't get their hands on it. Stingus holds on to his ulti for now. Looking to clear that wave from a little bit longer range. Dustodon barely able to drop the bot tier 1 while the rest of the team was in mid. Donut Maker here trying to keep this wave in top lane basically under control at this point. 90 seconds, DJ, until we could get one of the biggest fights Heavy has seen quite literally all offseason because there have been no fights. Giga gonna answer a turret in response, looking to get as much priority around this dragon pit as absolute possible.
I mean, again, you couldn't ask for a better start to the season, Necrox. This game is so close. Once again, Glaive is trying to take advantage of their comp. They've successfully found picks and poke damage in multiple team fight situations that look like they should be stacked against them. I really think they are fighting so well here, playing so well, and we are just balanced on a knife's edge as this fourth Drake is spawning. 7-5 in the kill score. You know, small enough gold advantage for Glaive Onyx to not be huge. Like, this is a really close game right out of the gate here for Heavy League. You could not ask for more than that as this Drake is about to spawn. We'll see it again. Glaive is going to be looking for poke. They're going to be looking to catch a member a little bit away from their teammates. Who flashed that fight? Looking to ball here as 5 and win in front to back. Who's going to find the moment? That is the question.
And when you pose the question to Glaive Esports, you ask them, who is your strength? Who is your weakness? What is your strength? What is your weakness? And they respond with the Tuper and the Tuper. And our eyes are all on this Ezreal now. The Tuper playing this marksman has looked so good. Mystic shot after mystic shot from long range, true shot, barrage. Everything you can ask for from an AD carry at this point in the game. It's Giga looking for the 1v1 against Dustodon. We'll take him really long to kill this Scion. It's a race back to the tier 2. Dusk already about a third HP. Giga looking for the dive, but will not commit to the kill. Dusk really chunked out now as this dragon is online, and Giga looking to keep him here as a fight may break out indeed. Here's the engage, gonna be on to Donut Maker once again, gonna go golden, trying to buy a little bit more time for the team to make his way online, but Donut will drop a hole in the middle of this roster now as who flashed that fight lose their mid laner.
Yeah, and they do it again here, Necrox. Glaive find the moment, they find the pick, and honestly, what is Donut Maker doing? He's just standing alone in the jungle. It is literally everything we said you cannot do against this composition. He walks away from his team and gets spotted on vision. Yeah, you've got a shockwave, but that doesn't matter when your opponent can go unstoppable. He just gets punished there by McShootham's, and that's a free Drake over to the side of Glaive. Who flashed that fight is getting nervous here. They continue to walk into the trap set by Glaive, and in the top side as well, Dusk just takes a trade he shouldn't be taking. This is a Blade of the Ruined King Renekton. You don't win those trades. He wins the side lane in the extended fight as he gets those 3-hit passives against you. So I just think maybe a little bit of angst here, maybe a little bit of early season jitters. Who flashed that fight, getting caught out here in multiple parts of the map, and Glaive taking full advantage.
I think your diagnosis, excuse me, is perfectly accurate, DJ. It's nerves, nerves, nerves. Donut Maker, he's new. He's trying to make some sort of action, trying to generate utility and space for his team, but he forgets what he's up against. You're up against McShootums, who has been absolutely killer in this game so far and looks to pursue that killer instinct onto Donut at any possible opportunity. They pull the trigger and he just goes down without a second thought. As Glaive Esports Onyx have stalled Dragons out long enough. They are now even in terms of Drakes, have 2 Infernals to their name at the moment. Who flashed that fight? We're so confident trading away top tier 1 for this Dragon. All that advantage now is completely gone.
Yeah, it really is. And you could not ask for a better Drake and Drake's Soul if you are Glaive Esports Onyx. They've set up for a poke comp, and Infernal Drake's just going to make that a whole lot better every time you get it. Infernal Soul, of course, will really make it good if you can get it again. The setup for this team, it's all going to be about getting those picks. Find a member of Who Flashed That Fight that leaves the composition, that walks too far into darkness, jump on them immediately, kill them, and then go to the objective. That is how you win if you are Glaive, or if you can poke them out really enough before the fight. Those are your 2 options here. You don't want to take a full 5v5. I still think you don't want to get into those front-to-back situations, and they're playing it out very well towards those win conditions. Giga does not group with the team. He continues to try to press these side lanes to force Dusk to Dawn back. Meanwhile, McShootums and Jado are just waiting. They're just watching and waiting for someone to step away, and it has been Donut Maker this game. He's going to need to find the composure to stay with his team, to know his limits here. He is such a critical member to their team fight, and finally does finish. He didn't have a stopwatch. He finally finishes his Zonia, so he can feel a little bit better about it now, but he will need to step up in the later stages of this game if Who Flashed This Fight wants to win.
Yeah, Dusk to Dawn now going to be in a 1v2. Here comes
You don't want to jump on him.
As the Lulu. Don't want to use all your utility. Absolutely. On someone like Asai, he will be able to get away. Drowsy taking a little bit of a nap. Very low is the Psyop. The rest of the team has arrived to teleport in from Donut Maker. Keep your eyes on that shockwave. Giga will drop in the middle of everyone. They just can't keep the crocodile alive, and they lose their top laner for the 2nd time tonight. McShootums tried with Giga. They cannot kill him in time, and the rest of Who Flashed That Fight shows you why they're a coordinated team. McShootums now going to go in. He's going to be the sacrificial paranoia as he will drop for a one-on-one trade with the support. Jado going to be killed as well. Tuber trying to put in as much damage as possible, but he just can't do it with mistake shots. And look who's arrived once again. It's Dusk to Dawn, looking to make your nightmares come true. Tuber kiting away. Sting is low on mana. There's just not enough resources to continue the fight. No shockwave as well, as a trade turns into an absolute brawl.
Yeah, I'm kind of impressed they were able to take down the member there that they did jump on. Baka ends up falling. Oh, actually, Stingus did survive. He went down to like 1 HP, I think, but Dokdo had the ulti available, was able to get the wild growth out in time. McShootums, I was a little hesitant about the target selection once again. It's a little risky to jump in on the Nocturne on top of a Lulu wherever she is, but there was no Orianna Shockwave available in that fight, so maybe feeling confident enough to jump in without that big team fight ulti available. They were able to trade 1-for-1 and did kind of trade up with Jungler for support, even getting the teleport out of Dusk to Dawn. So is another slight win here for Glaive, who continue to play out these fights and the timings around the map about as well as they can thus far, but the Drake is spawning, and there will be a battle over this one.
Absolutely. This one is critical soul point to whoever can claim it. Glaive Esports Onyx have crept their way up in terms of gold. 4K at an advantage as the fight will break out. 1 paddle star, and here's Giga on the flank, flashing forward, has absolutely destroyed this team so far, and will do it again. Glaive Esports Onyx now just need to kill Dusk to Dawn. McShootums secures the Drake, and with the top lane rock, he absolutely shreds the health bars away from Who Flashed That Fight, and now they're on the march to Baron.
Giga, what a flank. That was incredible from the Glaive top lane, and we talked him up so much in the pregame, coming off that third team performance in Heavy League spring season, but showing that he can be so much more here against the Team 2 top laner. Giga finds the critical play. He decimates Who Flashed that fight. They get the Drake and they get the Baron now on Dragon Soul as well. This one's been busted open, Necrox.
This is why they're a championship organization. This is why the trophy belongs to Glaive. They proved to you that they deserve to be here and proved to you they deserve to hold that crown. Who Flashed that fight now? You need to hold on for as long as possible. Keep your fingers curled onto the rafters because this is going to be a bumpy ride for the next little bit, as Baron Empowered Siege is just so hard to deal with when your wave clear is a Lethality Varus and an Orianna.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really difficult. I do think they should be okay. They have a lot of standing turrets still. This will probably be nowhere near a death push. It's going to be more for Glaive about, pushing this gold lead. Again, there is still a strong team fighting composition for Who Flashed that fight. You want to push these waves up, clear out jungle vision. Again, you are best when you are getting picks, when you're getting flanks like that one onto this composition. If you can have priority in the jungle, if you can have vision in the jungle, it makes it all the easier. So I want to see them shove waves up in all three lanes. It's exactly what they're doing. Take jungle control and get set up for this Soul Drake that will be spawning in 3 minutes. That is really your target with this Baron power play. If you can get that Soul Drake, you take away a huge condition from them, you just absolutely monstrously buff your poke. But meanwhile, Dust to Dawn
looking to match the aggression of the enemy top laner. Shocklave will catch out McShoot'ems. Here comes the Galliolti over the top to split up this mid lane fight. Just so low, he's nearsighted. What a bubble over the wall! But a hero play from Dokdo will keep his top laner alive. Everyone is low. One more Paddle Star won't find the mark. Dokdo face tanking that one to keep Dusk alive on the Scion. But the base now, DJ, is under attack. Donut Maker looking to make an attack of his own in the mid lane. Won't be able to find much, but the bot inhibitor has dropped. And here's the fight now going to break out in mid. Donut Maker going to go gold with his Zombies. Here comes Baka over the top. The Wild Growth going to keep him alive for a little bit longer. Baka now kiting back. How much can he do in the fight? Dust to Dawn turns this one around, or at least trying to. Not going to be able to find much success. Second inhibitor taken. That's all they need to secure this base. It is in shambles. It is destroyed. Make it 3 inhibitors. The minions have won this base fight single-handedly, and now from a miracle hope to none at all.
Yeah, that is devastating, and that is what happens when you try to make the play against the Baron push. I don't fault them for it. Like, if you see the opportunity, you pull the trigger, but they can't execute on it. They don't get anything as Dust to Dawn charges in. Jado doing some brilliant disengage work with the taunt, with the Galio ultimate, the heroic entrance there, creating so much space. And once you commit all those resources, Giga wasn't even there. So you just lose one inhibitor. Now the minions are crashing into your base, and in the extended fight, they do all the work. As you mentioned, they help take a second inhib. They take the third all on their own, and now Who Flashed that fight is just consigned to their base. They can't go anywhere. As the minions push in, they got to just try to stay alive in this game, let alone try to stop the Soul Drake that is coming up in 52 seconds. This is looking absolutely dire.
And between Giga, McShoot'ems, and Tooper, this team has absolutely looked incredible tonight, and they're not looking to stop their run now, as Baka has to pop the ulti along with Wild Growth, but it doesn't mean jack crap. Is now it's Glaive Esports Onyx taking a 3-0, make it 4-for-1. Tooper's gonna finish off Dust to Dawn as well. Couple more autos in the bag, and that freeze on your screen means that Glaive Esports Onyx has taken the first ever game of Heavy Summer Split.
Yes, they have, Necrox, and what a way to do it. Just really outperforming across the game, in my opinion. They understood their win conditions so very well on this composition, never opting into free 5v5s, always trying to mess with the setup of who flashed that fight and just punishing members every time they misstepped, every time they overstepped. I mean, Donut Maker got caught out so many times, and you know, you can kind of understand it. Again, it's the first week of the season. You're up against a Nocturne Galio. It can be hard to recognize that the small missteps that you make in solo queue that don't go punished normally get absolutely destroyed by a composition like this. That is what they are looking for. And Glaive didn't miss a single opportunity. They kept getting small victories. They kept building up. And finally, when they got the chance on that flank from Giga, they absolutely destroyed them. That was a brilliant approach to the game. And honestly, excellent performance here from Glaive, showing why they were the champions last season. At least the org and the players taking a very positive first step towards defending that championship.
And there's everyone there that deserves credit. Giga with that incredible flank. You get McShootums finding angles with the Panaria, forcing plays in top, bot, mid alike. Puffles landing huge bubbles, huge sleeps, and massive paddle stars. Tooper so consistent on the Ezreal. And Jado roaming top side, making Baka's life so hard to play. Everything about Glaive looks so good, and it's week 1, game 1. This is the first game it's split. It makes me so excited to watch this team throughout. I mean, it might be early to say it, but they're looking for another trophy, and it just looks so good already. With that, though, we have 2 more games coming your way as we watch these 2 teams try to reclaim one more off another. We'll be right back with our analyst desk after a short intermission. Looking forward to game 2.